Guess I should start things off by saying, just because this is my first official VGC live tournament in 2013, this is going to be at Pleasanton Regionals in Northern California. That doesn't mean this is my first Pokemon tournament. I started playing competitive Pokemon in 2007, and I was one of those players that would go to tons of different, like, smaller grassroots singles tournaments. So whenever there was like a convention, right? Whenever there was like Fanime or like Anime Expo or, you know, different conventions, different places, they would always have singles tournaments for Pokemon. And I was one of those people. I would get in a car with all my buddies, we would go to the con, and I would just win the singles tournament. Or, you know, my roommate would win the singles tournament. And that's how it was going for years. I was already, in my opinion, an established singles player. I've been playing Smogon since, you know, it actually became popular in Gen 4. I was one of those people that always, like, you know, hit the very tops of the ladder. I was in it with the who's who of the singles community, right? So I was an extremely established singles player, and it was kind of around the time because, like, if I'd already been an established singles player for like 4 or 5 years at that point, and so it got to the point where pretty much it was getting harder for me to find people that actually like didn't know of that were on what I perceived to be my own skill level. Because a lot of the times you go to these tournaments, more like there'd probably about 60 to 70 people in these singles tournaments, and there'd be like 4 people who were probably pretty good, and then it just came down to matchups, and you actually get pretty good games out of those people. But for the most part, people just didn't really know what they're doing. So I guess the whole story really does start in 2012 when I was at the FanimeCon singles tournament. It was a FanimeCon singles tournament. It was the quarterfinals. We had over 100 people. It was actually a pretty big event, and I was fighting a guy by the name of Ogloza, who I'd never heard of before. Super nice guy. If you don't know who Ogloza is, maybe you should check out some of his content. I hope he comes back, and he's been actually tweeting more about VGC recently, so he might come back. For those of you guys who don't know who Ogloza is, he is the former U.S. national champion of 2014. I think he's won some regionals, and he's top cut worlds, I think twice now. But Ogloza's a great guy. And I was fighting him. He was playing in the singles tournament. Again, this is in 2012. This is in summer of 2012. It's like post-summer. Anyways, I'm fighting Ogloza, and I'm realizing through this game, he has a ton of, like, swag. First of all, he's taking notes. He's super serious. He has a bunch of swag on his, like, DS and stuff like that. And that's actually going to definitely affect how I play tournaments as well, too. But I'm realizing, like, this guy's, like, really good. He has a ton of swag. He's a really nice guy. And overall, I just thought he was such a great person to, like, look up to. And I end up winning our game. His team, I remember a little bit about his team. He had, like, Latios, Conkeldurr, he had, like, Cresselia, Genies, things like that. Things that you think of as, like, good stuffs nowadays. And so after the game, I asked him, like, yo, where'd you get all this cool stuff? And he's like, oh, I got this at Worlds. And then I was like, Worlds? Those are World Championships for Pokemon? He's like, yeah, for VGC. And he's like, and then, like, he lost to me, and he's like, actually, like, this is the team that I got top 8 at Worlds with last year, which makes sense why my singles team, which was made for singles, you know, won just barely. Like, he almost beat me. And so, like, I perceived this guy to be on my skill level or better, and he's showing me that there's, like, a whole nother level of, like, competitive play that I didn't even know about, where there's potentially other players just as good as him, and if I'm good enough to beat him, that means I'm probably good enough to play against them. So we start talking a little bit more, and I start just asking him tons of questions about VGC, and he's like, yeah, it's doubles format. And then he explains to me that the next regional is going to be in Northern California, which is where we were both from, in a couple months. And so I have a couple months to prepare if I want to go to it, and gives me all the information, tells me to look it up. I look it up. I look up a little bit of VGC VODs. I see some of the more well-known VGC players. Like Aaron Zhang had just got done getting 3rd place at Worlds that year, actually. So, like, in between that time, there was a World Championships, and Aaron Zhang, that was the year that he got 3rd or 4th place at Worlds with Rotom Wash, and he double missed the Will-O-Wisp. So the thing that made him famous, like, there were no YouTube channels for VGC by the time. Like, in this time, there were still no channels. People didn't have capture cards. There weren't VGC streamers. Those things did not exist back then. They did not exist. Like, even channels like Shofu, like, I don't think Pokeaim had a channel. Like, you could watch some singles battles, and that's pretty much all you could watch. That's all you could watch were some singles battles. There were no VGC streamers or anything like that. VGC was not mainstream. And so I remember thinking, like, Aaron Zhang, that guy's from America. He's pretty good. He's probably going to be at this tournament. And, you know, after that Worlds is when he started really getting into content creation. But anyways, fast forward a little bit to August of whatever year that was, 2013, 2012 or something like that. Yeah, it was whatever year that was. And go to Pleasanton Regionals in Northern California. This is a 2013 regional. So that's the year when it's right before X and Y. So you can use, like, it's a expanded format for, like, genies. You know, there's no Z moves, there's no Dynamaxing, there's no Mega Evolution. And remember, like I said, I was shown this by a guy called Ogloza, who top cut the World Championships the year before. And I beat him. So I'm thinking to myself, like, I'm good enough to be here. I'm a player who has won almost every single singles tournament they ever played, or top cut at least. I beat someone who's good enough to be here. I won that Fanime tournament, by the way, too. Easy peasy, like lemon squeezy. Like I said, I'm someone who's used to being good at Pokemon, right? When I go to tournaments, I'm used to top cutting or winning. I'm used to having it go my way. You can kind of see that when I still play today. When things don't go my way, I throw a little salt tantrum. Just because for the longest time throughout my whole career, I've been better at Pokemon than people. Maybe it's a case of like a big fish in a little pond, but like I said, I traveled all over the country for these tournaments. I fought the best of the best in singles, and now I'm going to try and take on a brand new world that is VGC. And again, just because this is my very first VGC regional, this isn't my very first VGC tournament. I had played in the multiple online tournaments that they hosted back in 2011, 2012, and 2013, so I understand the rules. Like, I understand how VGC kind of goes. And so I get to this tournament. I'm with two of my buddies. I'm with my buddy, my roommate Patrick, who, you know, he used to play a ton of VGC with me. He's definitely more of a singles player. We featured him on the channel before. Great player in his own right. He's good at a lot of games. He decided just to go with us to this tournament just because he wanted to go on a road trip. And my other buddy Alex, whose name you guys might know is GM Hamilton, he's also top cut a few VGC regionals. And this was his first VGC event as well. This is actually his first time ever doing VGC. He seriously, like, watched Aaron Zhang lose at the World Championships, knew who Aaron Zhang was, and was like, I want to come see how I play against that guy. And funny story, he actually fights Aaron Zhang in the first round and gets, like, dumpstered, which actually, like, inspired him to, like, play, get a lot better at VGC really, really quickly. Like, getting his butt handed to him by Zhang really motivated him to, like, learn more about VGC, because, like, his introduction to it was fighting, like, the best North American player for his first game ever of doubles. His only other game of doubles was, like, fighting me, you know? He was using, like, Scarf, Electivire, and, like, Sash Cloyster and stuff like that. He was trying to single strats Zhang, and it was funny. Anyways, so we get to the tournament, and it's in this huge, hall, right? It's in this absolutely huge, like, hall, like, at a fairgrounds. It's just at a fairgrounds. And I would think the tournament actually ended up having almost 200 people. It had almost 200 people, and this is back when singles and doubles were on different days. So, sorry, not singles and doubles. TCG and VGC were on different days. So Saturday was TCG and Sunday was VGC. That's kind of just how regionals used to be run. And this is back when regionals were free. We just had to show up. We just showed up and signed up for the tournament. I think we might have paid like $5 for like parking or something like that. I don't really remember. Yo, hey brother, Mikhail, thank you for stopping by. We're doing a story about how I got into VGC today. So basically, we're there, and again, I'm thinking that I'm pretty hot shit. I have a pretty good team, which we're gonna be talking about in just a little bit. I've done all my testing. I bred all my Pokemon. They have as high as IVs as I can get them. They have like a couple Pokemon that aren't like flawless, but you know, it was hard to get flawless Pokemon back then. Like my Scrafty, for example, I'm using a Scrafty. Its only perfect IVs were in like attack and speed, because that's all you need. You need to get those first. You know, back then it was the Wild West of Pokemon. It was a lot harder to get Pokemon that had perfect IVs. And you're going to see that in my team, like, where I'm not really using a lot of legendaries because I couldn't soft reset for them. Like, I had to throw my only Master Ball at the Cresselia that I'm going to be using today. And so people start pouring in, and there's a lot more people than, you didn't have a 5 IV Ditto? No, I didn't. That wasn't a thing. How would you get a 5 IV Ditto back then? You can't. There's no events for them. Running a Garchomp team. Yo, you can run the team that I'm going to be showing you guys in just a sec. I guess I'll show you guys the team right now. So this is my team right here. This is my team. It is busted. I worked really hard on that team. I actually used a Sandvale Garchomp, which we'll talk about in a little bit. I used an Akaberry Metagross because Heatran was everywhere, which you see. I used a Dark Gem Scrafty. I used a Citrus Berry Cresselia. I used a Leftovers Dragonite and a Water Gem Jellicent. I think my Garchomp was sashed. So that was my team, and I worked really, really hard on it. And that's for my very first regional. I think my team actually, for never even experiencing what the meta is, if you look at their teams and you look at mine, you can kind of see that I definitely have a more aggressive playstyle because I'm using both Dragonite and Garchomp, which were not meta. But like the fact that I'm still kind of meta with cores like Jellicent, Cresselia, Metagross, those are in a lot of the different teams. So you can still see I'm one of those players that my natural skill at the time was made me able to not only pick a team that can play meta, but almost advance the meta with a little bit more aggressive picks. I didn't have to just Trick Room. I had the ability to go Garchomp Dragonite. I had the ability to go Metagross Dragonite and just do a bunch more aggressive pins than just a lot of these harder Trick Room teams. And we'll look at actually some games. We're going to break it down every single game, every single round. I also went and wrote down the place that every single player got. So you can see the placing that every single player got in the tournament that I played against. This was a best of one tournament, and there was team preview because this is Gen 5. In Gen 4, there was no team preview. But this is Gen 5, so there is a team preview here. And so, like I said, my team, I worked really hard on it. I was very confident in it. It fit my playstyle to the best that I could actually make it. And I sit down for my very first round. And so we're going to be going up against this team right here. We're going up against this team right here. And like I said, my only other introductions with VGC were Alex Ogloza, who got top cut at Worlds. And, you know, like I beat him. I figured like I'm a good singles player. I'm good enough to be here. My team is so strong. And I fight this guy in the first round. I noticed that everyone's taking notes. I brought a notebook myself. It's going to be this notebook, even though I have a bunch of other notebooks as well. I implore you guys to get notebooks and have notebooks for every single year. It's really, really important. But this was the notebook that I used. And the first page, the very first page, was my notes for that game. Let's see if we can actually, like, let's turn this off. So let's see. Like, you can see, like, round one. I'll try and get the... I'm not going to show you guys it perfectly, but because the lights are really, really harsh. But you can see, like, round one, you can see I take, like, kitchen Scrabble notes on this thing. But, yeah, like, you can see the placings that they got up here. You see their names. This guy's name, his name in-game was Bone. And his first name was actually Tony. But let's check out the game itself. Let's actually check out the game itself. I have that game right here. This is back when you could record one game. You could record one game for all of your Verse Seeker could hold one replay. And so I have one replay. And I want to talk about how this replay might be the most important replay of Pokemon that I ever have saved. On there, I still actually have it in my Black and White 2 game. I've showed it a couple times. But this is the second time I ever fought against a VGC player that was an actual VGC player that I can remember. And so we're going into the game. And we're going against Bone. Like I said, I took really good notes for this tournament. And when I write down notes, I really like to write down their 6. And then I like to circle and make little notes about which ones I thought they would bring. So I can look back on it and make sure I selected correctly. I really try and send out like I write down everything. Like I've given a whole video about how to take notes. And I don't really want to go over it here. But writing down the order in which things use their moves, the moves that things use, and correctly selecting the correct 4. Like basically, I thought in this game they were going to go Abomasnow, Chandelure, Hariyama, Rhyperior, and I thought they were going to try and like let me set TR, which they totally didn't. I guessed this completely wrong. It was actually a pretty long game. I tried to take notes the way you do it, and I couldn't focus on the game. Well, it's hard. You have to practice, and this was my first game doing it too. This is my first game ever taking my notes the way that I take them, and this is all just came to me like naturally. Like this isn't something that this is natural for me, and I still had to work on it. But you can see this game. This guy's set in TR. And I'm TRing the TR of the TRs, and there's screens. And so you can see, like I was talking about, if you guys are even watching this game at all, I talked about how, in my own opinion, I was someone that was supposed to win things. I was the main character of my freaking Pokemon life. I had won so many singles tournaments. I beat the only VGC players I'd ever really played against. And I'm fighting someone right now who's hitting me with like these TR fake out. Like, he's showing me the bulk, the value of playing not to lose in VGC. And I'm not losing, right? But I'm not just steamrolling him. And I think that's going to be one thing to look at for the whole remainder of the tournament. The level of player base is so much higher here than like the average Smogon player. And that doesn't mean that VGC is harder. It just means that on general, like the players that played VGC were a few levels ahead, a few years ahead of like, you know, what it meant to be good players. And so the fact that I'm like not just rolling him is surprising to me. It's taking a little chip off my ego. Second VGC, and he's counting Trick Rooms. Well, the thing is, it's like this. It's hard to explain, but like like I said, I'm good. I know every single move that all these things can learn. Obviously, I know they're gonna trick him if they leave with Hariyama Jelly Scent. Sorry, Hariyama Crest or whatever. I think it was Jelly Scent that he led with. I know that my Crest is here to Trick Room. Like, I'm not bad at all. I'm very good. If anything, I've gotten worse from this point, because this is probably one of the best that I ever did. I mean, I've had better results, but you know, this is me in peak form. This is almost 10 years ago. This is when I wasn't a boomer yet, you know. I wasn't washed. Yeah, like I kind of just had TR on my team to TRs or, you know, reverse TRs or set TRs, I guess. But anyways, you can see like I'm totally still winning, but the fact that I'm not rolling him, the fact that he's holding off my advances, it makes it's a worrying trend. That's the best way to look at it. And he's making all the right plays too. He's actually played like every single turn, like dang near perfect. If you actually look at it, it's just I'm playing it really well. I'm resetting my screens. I'm just playing it to the best of my own ability. And he goes for the what is it? The Ice Gem Blizzard. Busted. I think most of the best players in the world have a lot of natural skill. Is it like chess where there's a lot of prodigies? No, it's Pokemon's. It's like riding a bike. You have to like do it. You just have to do it. There's like no such thing as like natural skill for Pokemon, I think. I really just think that it's a matter of like who puts in more time. Cause like for something like basketball or something that's based around athletics, you might be able to have like a naturally built body for that. But like there isn't really that type of thing for Pokemon. Like you kind of just you kind of just have to play a lot, you know? You have to know everything. There's skill in setting Trick Room, because it's all information, you know. Some people might be able to process the information or categorize it in a better way, but they still have to go through the trouble of learning the information in the first place. There's no one that just knows that something gets TR without learning first that it gets TR. Black and White were the games where I stopped playing. I didn't come back till X and Y, so this is all news to me on matchups in this game. This was a hard game. You can see it's a long one. It's a pretty long one. This is how long good VGC games are when there's no Dynamaxing, no Mega Evolution, Z moves. Like, this is a long game. And you'll see how like close it is. I'm maxing out my EVs. Maxing out those EVs. Like I'm back. Look at this bulk. This is probably my favorite game of Pokemon that I've probably ever played. And I'm really happy that I still have the replay. This video's up on my YouTube channel. And like, this is back when weather was permanent. Like, look at that value. Like, look at it. Look at the value. This is how good I was. This is the next level that I was on right now. Like, you don't see anyone else getting this much value out of their Pokemon. So goes for the fake out, takes out the Amoonguss. Takes out the Metagross. That's completely fine. I think I was going for a Bullet Punch that turn anyways. And let's see. I go for an Ice Beam just to get some static damage on Hariyama. Fish for freeze. Get some chip. Remember, he's also poisoned. He goes for a cover there, so we knew we had a free turn. And I think I lose the Crest to Hail. Yeah. And then I just get to send out my good Mons in the back. So I was planning on taking out both my Mons. And then I just bring out good stuff in the back. There it is. But yeah, this game was really hard. This game was really, really hard for my very first one, right? It was really hard. So there's my Scrafty. This was the Scrafty that, again, my Garchomp only has like 3 perfect IVs. My Scrafty only has like 2 perfect IVs. But that was how you had to play back then. Like, it was hard to get perfect Mons, and I wasn't a cheater. So we just go for Earthquake. We're literally Earthquaking our own Scrafty because, of course, we are. Because Scrafty's thick, right? Scrafty can take it. We get Curse Body Lamau. But you can see we take out the Hariyama in doing that. And so you see, like, it's stuff like that. Most people out there would just fake out the Hariyama and, like, Dragon Claw the Jellicent, but I didn't want him to live. Like, this play guaranteed my win, right? So it's little stuff like that like, you can see that, like, my plays are just a little bit different from, like, a singles standpoint. I think he still has another Pokemon left. Yeah, he still has Rhyperior left. And I did get my, my Earthquake disabled. But I was one of those players that was never afraid to, like, hit my own Mons with AoE moves, like, ever. And we just go for the Outrage because, of course, we do. And we actually had Outrage as tech for Conkeldurr back then. So we take the wins, right? We do take the wins. You know, it took a long time. That was like a 14 or 15 turn game. And I just want to talk about how important that game was for my career. Because it was the start of learning that, like, oh shit, like, maybe I'm not as good as I thought I was. Like, I was still able to win, but that was a hard win. That really tested my abilities. Assuming this was best of 3? No, best of 3 did not exist back in these days. Let's turn the light back on. Yeah, best of 3 did not exist. This is a best of 1. That's all you got. That's all you got. And it's a lot easier to play. But best of 1 is a lot more balanced format without shitty things like Dynamax, Mega Evolution, Z moves. People were fine with this. There were not people that were complaining that it was best of 1. It was just best of 1. That game was long enough. If they were to play best of 3, we'd be there for a million years. I think that game, I saved it. And I remember thinking, like, this was the first round, and this was this hard. Like, this was this hard after 1 round. What did I sign myself up for? And so I really started to have, like, second guesses of thinking that I could actually do this, if I could actually be good. We go back and look at the team. So that was that first round. That guy ended up getting 28th out of, like, 200. So, like, he wasn't even bad, right? So he wasn't even bad. He actually did very, very well. I think he had, like, 1 other loss. The fact that he lost round 1 means he had bad tiebreakers. We've ended up finishing at the same record of X and 2. It's just that he had bad tiebreakers because he lost the first round, which that does happen at VGC events. You always got to win your first round. It's the most important thing. So, guy had a really good team. It's a hard Trick Room. He was playing that hard Trick Room, and we were able to get the win. And I played so well. If you actually go back and rewatch that game that just happened, I know I talked a lot over it. Very high-level stuff. Especially, this was almost 10 years ago. A lot of these things people think about as being, like, standard and good now. Players just didn't do those things back then. So, like I said, that was round 1. Guy's name in-game was Bone, and I've never seen him in another event. Round 2, this is the notes. We're going up against a guy named Alan. And so, like I said, there's already a chink in my armor of me thinking, am I good enough to be here? That was really hard. I didn't think this would be... Like, that was just the first round. Why is it so hard? My next round, I'm going to be going against a guy named Alan, who's probably in his 50s. And there were adults that played VGC. I was an adult. I was in my 20s. There are adults that play VGC because there's adults that play the card game. And there's still adults. Like, at regionals, you're going to see a lot of people that are older. I would say seeing 50-year-olds is a little bit on the older side. And so I was already intimidated. I was already thinking, like, I had got myself in over my head on this one. I'm fighting against a really older guy. And you can see his team that he has of Mamoswine, Thundurus, Virizion, Latios, Cresselia, Heatran. This guy has 5 legendaries. I have a Cresselia that took my only Master Ball and has 0 perfect IVs, right? I'm intimidated. I'm not probably going to be playing to my fullest potential. Guy's older than me, and I assume if he's older, he's had 50 years to learn about Pokemon. And his team's busted. His team is so good. I don't even have Latios. I don't even know how you get Latios back then. But his team's so freaking good, right? And, like, in singles, where I come from, Latios is banned. This guy's using Ubers, in my opinion. I don't have any replays for this game, because, again, you can only save the 1 replay. But I lead with Crest Jellicent, which the whole point of that team was you'd protect the Jellicent, you'd go Trick Room, and then you'd go for, like, a Water Gem boosted Water Spout. And he leads with Thundurus and Mamoswine, and he ends up, like, taunting my Cresselia. I can see it all through my notes right here that I've written down. And he taunts my Cresselia, and he goes for Earthquake into the Jellicent, who I protect. And then I end up making a couple switches. I switch out Jellicent for Garchomp, soak the EQ, go for an Ice Beam. Sorry, I set a screen, and then I'm able to eventually. Anyways, I won that game. I did win. I did win that game, so I'm undefeated. It ended up him having bad mons in the back. He brought Virizion, and I brought Dragonite, so we ended up winning that one. But yeah, very, very close game. And I'm thinking still, like, this is weird. Like, why is this so hard? Why is everything so hard? And I didn't expect, like, all the players. Like, remember, I talked about I went to a bunch of singles tournaments before this. And out of a 100-player singles tournament, there'd be about 4 players who are, like, you know, at the same level as me. And those would be the players you fight in, like, the finals and the quarterfinals. The first 5 or so rounds would be people that had, like, in-game teams. And even still, I had, like, an in-game team. I had Eevee trained all my Pokemon, but their Ivies were all over the place. Just because you couldn't get 5 Ivy and 6 Ivy Pokemon back then. And so, I'm really fighting an uphill battle. I have a team with bad stats in a new format, but I am undefeated. I'm showing that even with my back against the wall, even with all these limiters on me, I'm still able to beat people that know what they're doing. And so, again, you can see Alan got 29th. You can see right there. So he's still out of like 200 people. I think he only had the 2 losses. Again, losing early really makes your tiebreakers not great. So he ended up doing really well. And so, oh, we got a sub. And we got T-Fish, subscribe to tier 1, 16 months. Yo, thank you so much, my friend. Hopefully you're enjoying the story time. So, let's get into the third round. And the third round, you can see that guy's team is actually really cool. You can see it's Politoed, Dusknoir, Rotom Wash, Scizor, Blaziken, and Dragonite. So I'm starting to realize that, like, maybe I am good enough to play VGC. You know, I just beat that old guy who was really good. And, you know, actually, a little bit of a story about Alan. Alan is the father of Brandon, and he has, like, another son that have also, like, top cut Worlds, Juniors, and Seniors for, like, multiple years. Anyways, I would see Alan at most other regionals, and once I got to know him and his whole family, we went to multiple events together. They're some of the nicest people in the VGC community. They don't really play anymore, but Alan's a great guy. His family's great, and you know, you end up meeting a lot of really nice people if you take the time to, like, you know, get to know them. Anyways, in round 3, you can see that Blaziken team. And I've talked about this Blaziken team before. If we actually look at his leads were Dusknoir, Politoed, and I led Dragonite, Scrafty. So I think I went for like a fake out in the Politoed and I popped in Outrage, and I think that actually hit the Politoed. It's kind of hard to see with my notes, but anyways, he sets TR, and I'm like, okay, you can set TR. Like, I'm actually in a great spot here, because you can't do anything against Scrafty. Next turn, I go for the Dark Gem into the Dusknoir, pick up the KO there, and he brings out his Blaziken, right? And I thought that was really weird. I was like, you set TR, like, Speed Boost Blaziken is pretty not great. And basically, I'm like, I'm just going to hit this guy in the face with my Scrafty and just win the game. And he underspeeds my Scrafty with the Blaziken because he's holding an Iron Ball. And he Iron Ball, like, I think he did some fighting move. I don't have it actually written down. I just wrote fighting right there. And he killed my Scrafty. He killed my Scrafty with the dang Iron Ball Blaziken. And I ended up winning the match. Right, I ended up winning the match, but I just started thinking, like, these people are crazy, right? These people, like, that was like, remember, look back at our first round, that was a lot harder than I thought. Second round, a lot harder than I thought. Third game, now it was harder than I thought, and they're busting out tech that even I didn't see coming, which is very hard to see. If you actually went back and watched that game that we showed, I had every single move that guy could have done, like, prepared for. I outplayed the crap out of that first guy, even though it was hard. This one, now they're busting out tech that even I didn't see coming. And so my whole, like, I guess, illusion of being a good player is being really, really challenged by this. And it's at this point that there's a break for lunch. And I want to say that it's because of this regional and the first lunch break that I suck when they talk about lunch breaks. Every single time there's a break, I always lose my first round after a break. Now, I'll say in this case, maybe it's because I'm undefeated, and usually going into a lunch break, I usually am undefeated. So the level of players drastically improves when you're fighting people who are also undefeated in, like, the 4th and 5th round. But I'm always terrible after lunch breaks. It really sucks me out of, like, being in a competitive mindset. And I haven't lost every round at a regional after a lunch break, but it's really hard for me to like zone back into the game, into that competitive mindset after like taking a break. And usually like you can't even ever get food because there's no food at any of these places. And if you do want to like leave to get food, you have to like leave, go somewhere, get the food, struggle with time, get back, pay for parking. It's terrible. Anyways, the only place to get food at this event was a garlic fry stand. Remember, I said this is the heat summer. It was like post-summer. And the only thing people had to eat were garlic fries. And I didn't get them, but my buddies got them. And the whole venue was like a hot, like, I don't know how to really call it, but it was like at a fairgrounds, like a fairgrounds building with like no AC, and everyone's eating garlic fries. And so I fondly remember that. We don't let anyone eat garlic fries anymore. It's terrible. The whole venue just smelled like garlic. Like, it's the worst thing ever. Anyways, so that's a funny thing about that. But we're going to be talking about round 4. And round 4, we're actually going to go up against a guy named Ross the Charmander, Sam Johnson. Some of you guys might actually know who that is. He's gone to Worlds 4 or 5 years in a row. And you can actually see he got 4th at this regional. Right? He got 4th at this regional. And you can see his team. If we actually compare his team, the team with Cresselia, Scrafty, Conkeldurr, Rotom, it's above and beyond better than it's more polished than all of these teams put together. It's a Trick Room team, but that's a good looking Trick Room team, right? You have Cresselia as the main setter, Scrafty as Fake Out. This is before fairies exist, so you didn't have to stack fairy weakness bear. There's no fairies in this game. That means that Conkeldurr and Scrafty are just actually busted. Rotom Wash is good, Amoonguss is Redirection and Spore, and then Heatrans the cleanup. And this is back when Heatran could use Eruption if you had the event Heatran, or Heatran just had Eruption. Yeah, I think it was an event Heatran. But anyways, Ross the Charmander, Sam Johnson, very, very good player. If you guys don't know who he is, like, I'm sure you could just Google his name into Google or like YouTube and find out a lot of games of him. He's such a good player. And I end up leading Metagross Jellicent. I think I led with Metagross to... remember, I was using Akaberry Metagross, so I was trying to like outplay the Heatran from the start and just go for an Earthquake against it. Like, I really wanted to pin the Heatran because I realized from the team preview that like his only win condition was that Heatran if I could take care of it. And he leads Crest Rotom, and if you look at his board of Crest Rotom Wash versus Metagross Jellicent, he can go for Thunderbolts on Jellicent, he can go for Willows on Metagross. I'm super pinned. And I end up losing. My board was Metagross Jellicent, Dragonite, Garchomp, and again, this is my first loss, right? This is my first loss. It's right after the lunch break. And I'm not going to lie, I don't take losses very well. You guys know me. I still don't, even 10 years ago, I don't take losses very well. And so, basically, this is when, like, freaking, you know, when Yugi mind crushes someone. Like, I got mind crushed pretty hard because, like, I was like, man, I'm not used to losing. And there's nothing I could do against someone like him. I had, like, no answer at all. He outplayed me, he pinned me, and it was best of one. I just had to hold DL. Sam Johnson being one of the nicest people in VGC. I would get my revenge at later regionals. We've probably played almost 20 times at events. One of my most favorite people to play, I would say. Definitely a good player, but he definitely got me this time, and he was using the Fire Gem Heatran. It did pop off at the late stages of the game. So, yeah, he beat me, and I am now 3-1. The whole place smells like garlic. And I'm just a mess of like thinking, what should I even do here? Like, where do I even go from here? And so the next round, you can see the next round, I have to play. I'm hot off a loss, and I have to play against the guy right here who ends up winning the whole tournament. Right? And his team is Cresselia Metagross. So right off the bat, we have similar cores. Gyarados, he has Intimidator, I have Scrafty. He has T-Tar with Sandstream, and I have a Sandvale Garchomp. And he has Thundurus, which I wish I could use a Thundurus. I'm using Dragonite instead. And then a secondary Fake Out and then Ludicolo. And again, he leads. This guy's name is Shareas, for those of you guys who don't know. Really, really well-known VGC player. He doesn't really go to events anymore, but like anyone who is old school VGC knows who this is. Like I said, he ended up winning this tournament. And basically, he leads with Thundurus and Ludicolo, and I lead Jellicent Crest because I realized like I want to go for Water Gem boosted things because his team takes a lot of damage. I wanted to set TR against this and just try to abuse it with Jellicent. Long story short, the game comes down to Scrafty at full HP versus Ludicolo. And I'm a full, right? I'm thick. I'm full HP, like bulk. And his Ludicolo is not even at full, right? So he does outspeed me. He goes for a Scald. And the first Scald crit burns my Scrafty. And then he weaves in a Protect. And then he goes for another Scald, puts me low. I go for my Dark Gem boosted Crunch, and he lives at like just a fraction of HP, the smallest number. And then he's able to finish me off the next turn. And so I felt like I was robbed. I was salty. I was like, dang it. Like, I was like, I can't believe you got that Scald. And I'm not going to lie, I was a salty mess. And, you know, shoutouts to him. You know, we've become pretty decent friends since then. And shoutouts to him for not just giving up on me, because I was a salty little jerk. But, you know, he congratulated my play. And he said, like, you did really good. Because, like, not going to lie, I did outplay. He literally had to just, I outpinned, outmaneuvered, and I just got crit scalded with a burn. I did really, really good. And remember, like I said, I'm already hot off that loss to Sam Johnson the round before. I just lost again. And this time it was the RNG. Like, I'm not feeling it. And again, hindsight 2020, these are the two best players in the tournament. They two are the two best players. The guy that I just lost to won the tournament, and Sam Johnson got 4th. And so, like, I don't know that these are, like, well-known, established players that have been doing this for years. I just think these are random guys. I feel like I'm losing the randoms, when in reality, I'm hanging and holding my own, and in the case of the game against Shreyas, like, good enough to beat the player who was the best. He congratulates my play, says he really liked my team, and I have to go into my next round. And so, at this point, I'm 3-2. I'm not feeling it. And I figured I got nothing else to lose, right? I have nothing else to lose. I don't think I can make top anymore. You know, lo and behold, I didn't know that those two would go on to, like, have such good tiebreakers. So round 6, I'm going against Alec. He actually gets 15th, so he gets top cut. And his team is Metagross, Thundurus, Conkeldurr, Jellicent, T-Tar, Latios. And basically, you can tell Alec's actually a really well-known player. Doesn't play anymore, but he's very safe in his teams. You can tell his team is, like, busted, right? I'm getting sick of having to play against these Latioses and these Thunduruses and all these Metagrosses. Everyone's using Conkeldurr. Like, this meta just does not really suit my playstyle, right? It doesn't. Like, I don't have any of these good Pokemon. And anyways, he actually used a banded Metagross. I can tell in our game I went Scrafty Jellicent, and he went Thundurus Metagross, and I fake out of the Thundurus, and I was like, cool, I'm gonna set TR. And his Metagross Zen Headbutt one-shotted my Jellicent. He was Adamant Choice Banded. And I ended up coming back and winning that game. And funny, lo and behold, Alec, this player that we're playing against in round 6 right here, he would actually, I'd play him multiple times in regionals over the next 3 or 4 years, and he would always use banded Metagross. And I feel that, like, banded Metagross, similar to, like, how I said there's, like, Crawdaunt believers, there's banded Metagross believers. Aaron Zhang is a fellow banded Metagross believer. He's like won or used banded Metagross at, like, 5 different regionals. Like, there's some people that just attach themselves to, like, banded Metagross and never let go. And Alec was one of them. I ended up winning. Because, again, banded Metagross can't really, like, I think I just sent out my Garchomp after that, and then, like, Garchomp just, like, rolled him over. So we take those, but, again, hard matchups, and I was able to stabilize. I was able to be like, you know what, I got nothing else to lose, let's just play this out. And I was able to beat a player who had a very, very good team, an established player, and I got back on my feet, right? My record is now, is it 3-2? 4-2? Let's see, so it's like 1, 2, 3, 4-2. 4-2 is a pretty good record, I would say. It's pretty good. It's not obviously what I'm used to doing because I'm used to just winning everything. But you can see Alec also got top cut as well. These are like 200 players too. So going to round 7, I've regained a little bit more of my confidence. This is the last round of the tournament. The last round of the tournament. And similar to the other teams, lots of Thundurus, lots of Conkeldurr, Rotom, Cresselia. And I know for a fact he's going to win on that Heatran. He actually has a Heatran plushie next to him. So I was like, I need to beat this Heatran. And basically, this guy, like, he was so salty when he lost. He went big with the Heatran. He went with the big Eruption. And my Aqua Berry activated for the only time in the whole freaking tournament. Cut the damage. I KO'd his Heatran with Earthquake. And then, like, he just had nothing. You can tell that team is, like, super low power. If it's, like, Rotom, Cress, Scizor doesn't do anything against my team. Heatran and then Thundurus back in the days, they were not like special attack investment. They were like wall sets with like Thunder Wave, Swagger, things like that. So like once you take out the Heatran, those teams have like absolutely no power. And he was so salty. Because like he was probably having a not so great day as well. He probably won the first 4 or 5 rounds, then like lost the last 2, was on a losing streak. And then he had to fight against Akaberry Metagross, which cuts the power of fire attacks. He was salty. He was really salty. He ended up getting 34th, which means he bubbled out of top 32. And I ended up with top 16. So my very first regional ever of all time got top cut. And, you know, I wanted more. You know, I wanted to be like, all right, again, only top 8 played. So top 16 gets like CP, you get like packs and, you know, a bunch of stuff. But you're done playing. And I'm like, I don't want to stop playing. I want to keep playing. And then lo and behold, like, Shreyas and Rasta Charmander, Shreyas and Rasta Charmander, the players that were right here, they ended up, like, Shreyas ended up knocking out Sam, and then Shreyas ended up winning the whole tournament. And I didn't know that until I got home, that, like, the players that I played against, and I checked all the standings, I didn't know, because, like, I went home defeated, right? I may have gotten top 16, which a lot of people would say that's a great result, especially for my first ever regional. But, I went home defeated. I was like, I was not good enough to win. And that lit like a fire in me. Like I wanted to do better next time. And it was good knowing that like technically the only like Shreyas was the round that knocked me out of like getting in top 8. If I would have beat Shreyas and won like the next 2, I would have been in top 8 for sure. And I should have beat Shreyas. Remember, he Scald crit burned me. And you know, it was good knowing the person that gate kept me from winning the whole thing, in my opinion, was the player that won. That's one thing that I really look back on fondly. I was like, there's certain times when you're playing, you're like, this is my event. I'm supposed to win. And if the only person that can stop you from doing it is the guy that actually wins, well, you know what? Like, this is a great example of, like, trying your best. Having it not be good enough, but, like, seeing the potential that you could do for the next time. And, again, yeah, this was my very first VGC regional. My next VGC regional would be in the 2014 season. And, you know, I've went over a bunch of my other results from there, but I remember going into this tournament thinking, like, I was hot shit, and then I realized that I was not invincible. And near the end, I realized, like, I'm good enough to do this. If I can fine-tune, like, my playstyle, my teams, I can make something out of this. This is something that I can be good at. I ended up being a pretty good VGC player. So, hopefully you guys like the story. Like I said, I wanted to weave in as much of, like, the notes as possible. I think you guys should definitely all take notes. Like, this is my 2013 notebook. It has a lot of my singles battles in it as well. I have a 2014 notebook. I have a 2015 notebook. Definitely get yourself some notebooks. These are great to look back on if you want to know stuff about Pokemon. And if I ever sound like a jerk thinking that, like, I'm so freaking good, I should be able to beat everybody, you gotta remember, this was like 10 years ago. When people are younger, they think things, your undeveloped minds think things in different ways. But looking back, it's definitely one of my best memories because it laid the groundwork for what VGC would be to me. You know, I met a lot of really good players who I didn't even know would be really good. I left a pretty bad first impression on a lot of them. Like Shreyas, for example, I was super salty that I lost. You know, shout outs to him for not just thinking I'm a jerk. But yeah, do your best and try your best, and hopefully that's enough. Nowadays, when you start playing VGC, like, I couldn't imagine trying to go to VGC now. Like, I almost want to say, like, this story could only have happened back then, the way that it did. You know, starting out meeting with Alex Ogloza, him telling me about a regional, going there, and fighting the opponents that I fought in the order that I fought. Each one of them, it was like a freaking anime. They taught me so many things about the scene, about how hard it would be, and each one of them gave me the skills to beat the next one, you know? The losses I had in the order that I had gave me the strength to realize that, like, I'm not perfect, but what I am is enough most of the time to find that inner strength. And so I feel stuff like that's important to find. And so every single time I struggle trying to find, you know, reasons to play VGC or reasons to make content, I always like to look back on this tournament because this is a good example of a tournament where I tried my best and it wasn't good enough. And I don't think I would change anything about it.